Moving on, Mr. Allen, you, sir, now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to see you back, gentlemen and madam. Mr. Fonberg, the document went, actually it was the Treasury Board Secretariat report went to Parliament last year, and in it talked about the F-35 and the $25 billion as being in, quote, definitions phase. So I'm looking at the chart on pages 12 and 13 of the AG's report, Chapter 2, and I noticed that just this year that actual wording got changed to options analysis. So when I look at the chart, sir, it says in 2006, it says National Defense completed preliminary options analysis of 5 aircraft, 2006, goes through a series of steps, comes to 2010, National Defense provided a letter to Public Works to justify procuring F-35 without competition. Can you explain to me, sir, how definitions phase became options analysis phase 8 months after it was reported to Parliament, when indeed you had decided to buy an F-35? At least that was the letter you sent to Public Works.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. If I may, on the specific question, which I believe is related to the report on plans and priorities from last year, on April the 13th of this year, my office was informed that there was an error in supplementary tables on major capital projects in the 2011-12 report on plans and priorities. Specifically, the RPP indicated that the Next Generation Fighter Capability Project status was in the definition phase. That was incorrect, and we apologize for that. 2011-12, the project was in the options and analysis phase. I could ask the CFO to speak to what that means.
Fair enough. That works for me, that explanation, in the sense of you believe you're at the options analysis phase last year, and yet I believe just on Tuesday the report back here was we had gone back to that phase, and I believe my friend Mr. Alexander, the Parliamentary Secretary, is on the public record of saying we're going back to the options analysis phase, which implies that we were further along. But I'll take your explanation at face value. At this point, if I could, to Lieutenant Colonel Deschamps. Sir, do you have a sense of, is $19,000 per flying hour for CF-18, is that close? Is that a close number?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. I don't manage those costs, operating per hours. My colleague to the left actually manages those issues, so I'll defer to him.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir, Mr. Chairman. I manage the contracted support for the CF-18 fleet. So all the spare parts and repair and overhaul annually. I'm looking for numbers, annually, we have spent for the last 10 years $200 million per year. Now, that is not the total operating cost of CF-18. That is the portion that I manage.
So when I use the number 19,000, you're not able to tell me. Could you provide that to the committee, please, flying hour costs? Could you table that with the committee?
Sir, yeah, we could calculate that for you and get back to the committee.
So when the U.S. says that the cost to fly the F-35A is 31 and change, we can round up or down, we'll leave it at 31. Does that number ring to you at all that close to the CF-18 cost, or is that more than the CF-18 cost presently?
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chairman, we've always expected that the F-35, due to its complexity, would cost more. And as I testified here last year, knowing that we'd spent about $200 million annually for F-18, I'd estimated $250 to $300 million in my last testimony. So we expected it will cost more.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing from you is it's going to cost more to fly the F-35 versus the CF-18. But yet we made an operating cost estimate that Mr. Fonberg has repeatedly said here that the sunk cost, including the minister has said, the sunk costs are the same as the CF-18 for the F-35. You, sir, have just told me they're more. Mr. Fonberg, square the circle for me. How did it get to be more by Mr. Ross and the same by you?
I think Mr. Ross will answer that question, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. There's
Actually, Mr. Fonberg, I'm looking for a response from you, sir. You're Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. ADM material, Dan Ross actually has the technical details on that, if you may answer.
I'm not looking for technical details.
That's a fair deferral. And
I understand, Chair. I'm not going to pursue it any longer. I simply asked to explain how it got more or less. Mr. Fonberg actually said it was the same. Mr. Ross says that the F-35 is actually going to cost more to fly than the CF-18. I accept him at that. So we'll move along. So, Mr. Fonberg, thank you. You said in testimony on Tuesday that the PBO didn't use operating costs when he came up with his numbers. The PBO was here today, Kevin Page. He said he absolutely did use operating costs. Do you now agree that the PBO did? We may not agree on his number, and that's okay. But do you now agree that he actually used operating costs to come up with a number?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I may actually ask again Dan Ross to speak to some of the correspondence recently and over time with the PBO. What we asked for clarification about 2 weeks ago was for the schedule of operating costs that we use to build our operating cost numbers. Mr. Ross can walk through that, but personnel, salaries and allowances, fuel and lubricants, base support services, and on and on. And we are unable to identify any of that in his report, and we have asked him for clarification, and we have received no firm clarification whatsoever that any of those items are included, other than a statement that by him that they are included. Dan, would you like to?
I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer. No, that's all right. But we're a minute over now. I just do not have the time. Mr. Allen's colleagues are quite welcome to pick up if they wish, but we do have to call the time now.